this man sitting on the couch. And my mom introduced him to me as my brother, my half brother. Come to find out she had been married before she met my father. And if you know anything about our culture, they don't talk, they don't share. And so that was a whole other life. Come to find out my mom had left her husband with and left three children. This young man was one of those children with him because he was extremely abusive. And back at that time, back in North Carolina, there was no kind of health services or anything like that for an African American woman. All you had to do was write a life, which is what she did. And so you're this woman that was always talking about, you're a fool to put up with it. Well, she didn't put up. She did it. But when she left her three children behind. She left two boys and a girl. And this young man, when he wasn't a young man, I was 15, and he was like 30 something, sitting on the couch. My mom didn't really know him, but I can just imagine as a mother who gave up her children and family and children, and hear this person that apparently they had been writing letters. She was writing letters over the years to her other kids. But I didn't know about it. But he shows up one day, he's got out the military, he shows up, and now he wants to be more openly a part of her life and family. So I'm going through this with my boyfriend. And here I come in the house, and there's this man who automatically I just give him carte blanche trust. And I'm feeling like, wow, I have a brother. Because see, I wanted to tell my dad, but I didn't want my dad to mess around and get hurt trying to, bring my boyfriend in because my dad would have killed him. I want nothing to happen to my dad. But then a brother, my brother can yoke him up, get him. I got a big brother, I was excited about this. And so my mom did not know this young man, though he was her son. She didn't know the level of depravity because when she left her husband, her first husband, she left him for domestic abuse on her. She did not know that he was sexually abused and he abused those children for all those years he had. He abused the boys and the girls, and he even cultivated that culture in the house where the boys abused their sister, sexually abused their sister. And so my mom didn't know that this man that was sitting on that couch was depraved because of his upbringing. And so I met my brother who said he'd be my savior with my boyfriend. Okay, but that's not the case. He raped me, and violated me from the ages 15 to 18. So now I'm stuck between, I'm still in a relationship with a boyfriend and my brother. Okay. So drug use, that ain't going nowhere. That's like just a stabilizer for me. Needless to say, during the season, uh, that I shouldn't have been sexually active, but under in certain cultures, it is that activating age, 15 to 16, 17. You could be getting married, you could start, experience. So at that time, physiologically, you should be forming certain ideals, okay, around your sexuality. This was my paradigm, and so I formed incorrect thinking about myself, incorrect thinking about sex, about sexuality, about life, about relationships, about love. Drug use escalated because I was pressed between two violent relationships, my brother and my boyfriend. I attempted suicide at the age of 18. I didn't want to die, but I just wanted something different. So overdosed on pills, had a fucked stomach, so on and so forth. By the age of 16, I was pregnant with my first child. My first, I don't know, it was a male or female, I don't know. But I was pregnant, and I got pregnant because I wanted somebody to love me without any strings attached. And that would just love me unconditionally. And so when my parents found out, oh, they were, because they're old school parents. So they were through the roof and everything, and just forced me to have an abortion. And so my mom took me to the clinic and everything, had an abortion, but in my heart, I wanted to have, but it didn't matter. I had an abortion. 3 months later, I was pregnant again. If I had my mind intent on having a child, someone for myself. And so they sent me to a school for pregnant girls, and I had my son um, by this boyfriend of mine at age 17, my senior year in high school. The school actually gave me hope in a new way of thinking about my life. So I am grateful for that school. I ended up going back and serving on their board later on in life, but I'm grateful for that school. However, it still was not enough, though they gave me a new way of thinking, it still was not enough. Something was missing, and of course, we understand it was that spiritual nourishment, right? And so let's fast forward about maybe 6 years and one more child. Okay, now I've had Christopher Jonathan now. My first child was Joshua, and then I had Jonathan, because I called him Jonathan. And I was very intentional, even with naming them. Each one spoke to, and this was before I even had spiritual understanding, but I was very intentional about the name. My first one I named Joshua because it's a rescue, it's a deliverance, it's a salvation. This baby's gonna save me.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I named my first one Joshua. Okay, and then my second one, I named him Jonathan, which meant gift from God, because I was not supposed to be able to get pregnant. By that time, I had a partial hysterectomy. They didn't understand how I ended up getting pregnant. My uterus was still there and an ovary, but still. And so I named that one Jonathan, gift from God, because the relationship I was in with the Father, we actually loved one another. I mean, he was like my best friend from high school. And so it was a good experience. And so now, about 6 years from, age 17, about 23, 24, I still have some unresolved issues and untold secrets, of course. And these sitting inside of me led me to more poor decisions. And of course, low self-esteem, anxiety. I didn't realize that I had trauma from the past. I just didn't realize that it was that. And so I had ended up getting involved with one of the drug dealers and moved him in. And therefore now I have unrestrained access to drugs. Okay. And so he sold cocaine, he sold crack, he sold weed. And so there it is. And I ended up getting pregnant by him. With twins, and ended up getting kicked out of housing for having him living there. Because of course people there, they're going to tell on you, especially if it's a drug dealer and they owe him money, and you got their furniture in your house, because they're paying them to buy furniture and whatever. And so I was not their favorite person. And anyway, to make a long story short, in regards to that, I ended up giving my babies up for adoption because I had nowhere really, because my family was kind of like up to here with me. I had one sister that, she was a holy roller. And one sister that would work with me, but the rest of them were just like, we didn't raise you like this. This is how you want to live, you go on ahead. And so anyway, I ended up giving them up for adoption. My family eventually did take me back in as I started acting like I wanted to have some sense. The drug use greatly reduced in my life, and things started looking a little more normal on the outside, at least on the outside. Now let's fast forward to about age 27. I'm getting my life back on track. I enrolled at Delaware State University psychology program because it's so important to me to understand what was wrong. I mean, I just had to get a better understanding. And so, but unresolved inner issues led, even though I was going to school there, it still led to more poor choices in men, okay? And as a result, long story short, I was gang raped as a result of bad choices in men. One of the guy that I was dating, he was black guy. He set me up. He set me up. He set me up. And so I go to this party that's filled with so much white guys. And so he set me up for that. And it was like age 27. Now, mind you, so now I am suffering from full-blown PTSD. Depression and panic sets in. I began seeing a therapist taking medication, and I ended up dropping out of school because, I remember one day walking to campus, leaving class, and it was just like my very first panic attack. I never had one of those before. And it was just like the buildings just started just closing in on me. And it was like some kind of a cartoon. It's hard to explain how things just initially just start to shift around you. And so I began seeing a therapist and stuff. I dropped out of school, started taking Paxil just to try to manage. It was approximately 6 weeks after I was angry that I met my first husband. So I'm married, I've only been married twice. I'm married to my God husband now. But the first one that I met was only 6 weeks after that. And imagine, I was full of trauma, self-hatred, and even at this point, unable to have, because now I've had a full life, but I've had the twins, given them up for adoption. I'm unable to have any more children. And so meeting this man 6 weeks after he gave rape, full of trauma, self-hatred, loathing, I clung to him. I clung to this pathological lying, serial cheat narcissist like a life crisis. He was a pathological liar, serial cheater, who's a narcissist. I can just go on and on. But I still clung to him like a life friend. And I left him, though. I did eventually leave him when he beat my son Jonathan. Not that he had ever not recommended him, but when I came home and I found my baby, he was probably about 10, maybe about 10 years old, laying on the bunk bed, crying, and I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And when I realized he had beat my son to the point where his the t-shirt that he had on was stuck to his back, was stuck to the raw flesh on his back. Like he had whipped him with the belt so hard that it tore his skin and his t-shirt was stuck to his back. And so when I went to try to take the t-shirt off, he's screaming because his flesh is stuck to the t-shirt. Needless to say. And so, and that's still a part that, there's still some areas in my life. It's not that I'm not healed from, but that the regret is so very real that I can just cry an ocean of tears thinking about that right now. Every now and then I say to my son, that's my big baby. He's 30-some years old now. But when I think about that, and so, anyway, that's a whole other story. So, the purpose of me just sharing a little bit, just a little bit, is because, I just really want you to understand that I feel you. You know what I'm saying? I can relate. That I know what it is like to have common worship. And I know what it is like to have raised a child, to have kept a child. I know what it's like to have given a child up for adoption. And I also know what it's like to have rescued and raised a child, which I can tell you that, for 13 years, from 2 days old to 13 years, and to have that child turn around and betray me in the worst way, and I end up losing that child. I know what it's like to lose everything in your house and in storage 3 times, to be homeless, to abuse drugs, to be abused through teen violence, domestic violence, sexual violence. I know what it's like to be married to a man that is a pathological liar and cheat who says he doesn't want to waste his time to have sex with you. Since he told me, he says, I don't want to, you can't have my babies. I don't even want to waste my time having sex with you and then turn around and be harassed by other women calling me up to brag and tell me how much that that he's with them because they're having this baby. And you can't have this baby. Okay? I also know what it's like to overcome. every one of these adversities that I have spoken of in not just overcome, but overcome them in such a great and conclusive way. Yes. That when people see you, they can't see any evidence of those events in your life. I know. That's the part I want you to understand. That part I know. When people don't see you crying, you don't see me crying, bent over, begging, crawling, shaking from despair or defeat, but you only see the glory of God in my life. That part is what I want you to see. And I want you to just embrace that part even for yourself. The Lord in his infinite grace, mercy, and wisdom has redeemed, restored, blessed, and elevated me in every area of my life. Every area of my life. I am celebrating 16 years of marriage to a man who I can't praise God enough for. Yes. Y'all, this man is, he's not perfect. Oh, he is appointed for me. And God has used him in spectacular ways to bring about healing in every area of my life. Emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, sexual. He's brought about healing. And I've done the same for him because when I sit down and I look at my husband, I say, Lord, I knew the days are gone. Because his story, my story pales in comparison to his and what he's been through. And so we just look at one another and we just go up in tears, just in tongues, and just start praising God, just looking at one another and celebrate what God has done in each other's lives. Because we know each other's story. God, in his infinite grace, mercy, and wisdom, has redeemed the time lost with my children that I gave up for adoption. He's redeemed that so completely that I want you to know, I have a relationship with them. I have a relationship with all of my children. That's a whole other story about that. But I have a relationship with all of my children. And including, like I said, the twins I gave up for adoption. They live in Tampa. And we see each other as much as we want to. The girls, oh my God. They're beautiful. They are like walking dolls. They're gorgeous, beautiful, inside and out. The breakthrough came for me when I was an adult. It came as an adult when I asked the Lord to come into my life in 1996. At this time, I was around 33 years old. I was 33. That was the first time I experienced and began to understand the quality of love. What love really is and its quality. And that was that I was created to receive it and created to give it. And once I experienced the difference between the real love of God and the counterfeit love of man, the counterfeit love in the world, my life began to turn around. I began to pursue that instead of the other stuff I was pursuing. The way I thought about things changed, which in turn affected my decisions, which in turn affected the outcomes of my life, which ultimately changed the path that my life was taking. It took about 10 years to process me up. It did. It took about 10 years to process me by deconstructing me. I had to be deconstructed, broken, breaking me, crushing me, making me choke on, literally choke on the things that I used to enjoy in my life. It had to be processed out. Because if you don't repent, if you don't change your mind, that's a whole other thing. I got all this stuff here with me because we don't know what the Lord's gonna have us do. But it took time for that to come out, for God to process these things that I enjoyed in my flesh out. And he brought me to a place of true repentance. Then he replanted me, the repentant me. It's the repentant version of yourself that he will replant. He replanted me with lots of dung around me. Oh, so when you come into your new place, understand your new place may not smell so sweet a lot of times, okay? He put a lot of dung around me, and he took great pleasure in pruning me. As I would bring forth some fruit, as I would just bring forth a little bit of fruit here and there, oh, fruit, fruit, but it was the working of the Lord because I was a planting, I am the planting of God. Now I'm in a place where I can bring forth much fruit and thereby give back generously to all who I am assigned to give to. So God has given me great administrative gifts that I have used in the workplace, and even as positioned to walk with executives and fivefold ministry leaders, serve on many boards and organizations, and establish many programs and ministries. Most importantly, crossover empowerment kingdom ministries and global alliance, where me and my husband serve as pastors. I'm apostle, he's prophet. God has given me and my passion for empowering others to see their unique strength, giving me and my husband passion to empower others so that they can see their unique strength, power, and abilities. Together, me and my husband attended Temple University of Harrisburg's SFW program. I can tell you what it means, but it wouldn't make a difference. But you still probably, I'd have to explain that. But anyway, it's their family development program to learn the principles and methods of empowering people and families to live a life of brilliant vision. So even though we were ministers, we wanted this because a lot of times as ministers, we just focus on the spiritual. It's like we want some tangible, tools, methods and stuff to really help people to live a life of brilliant vision. And so we went through that program and became certified family workers. And God has also given me the gift of teaching. And so with that gift of teaching, going through Temple University, I had the distinct honor of going a little further than my husband because of my teaching and becoming a certified instructor for Temple University. So I could instruct professionals who work with families such as social workers, nurses, educators, community leaders, so on and so forth, that were coming through and getting their credentials. So I instructed for the program as well when we were in Pennsylvania. But these are just many of the gifts that God has given me. And many, let me read it like this. These and many other gifts God had given me weren't released into use until after my 10-year wilderness experience. After I was processed. When I was being processed, I was getting a little bit of training and stuff in ministry at the church that I submitted myself to, working with my pastors, so on and so forth. But it wasn't until I went from 33 to 43 that once I hit 43, then I began to do some of these things that I listed out. There's a lot more things I got to do. But after those 10 years of deconstruction from 33 to 43, deconstruction by God, and Him giving my full attention and submission. Once that was complete, the actual building process began, but the deconstruction happened. It took me 10 years of deconstruction before He could build. Yes, ma'am. So the first 10 years, yeah, this is it. Yes, I'm done. The first 10 years, He was deconstructing and laying the foundation for the leader in me to emerge and stand on. In 2005, when I finally repented from that backslidden state, which I can't even go through all that. I came through with great deliverance, on fire, sold out for God, no turning back. He then took me on another leg where I was processed for the ministry in the presence of God. I want you to know I love the presence of God. I love the word of God. I love the work of God. And I've matriculated through to where I was ordained, not ordained, but elevated in the office of apostle. But I've been through many processes to get there. So what I really want you to know about me, I know the struggle. I relate and I empathize. You may not have the same story, but hurt, disappointment, shame, guilt, it's the same. And I want you to know that you're in a safe space, so you don't have to worry about me looking at you with a critical eye because I got lipstick going on. I understand. That was a liar. I understand. I also want you to know victory, that I possess the victory, and I come to give you an impartation of my victory. Okay? Okay? I want you to understand that. I'm going to share it with you how the Lord will allow me to do that. And that my personal mission statement is to give you the spiritual advantage. That is my personal. If anybody asks me, what are you here for, to give people the spiritual advantage? I know my call. in the purpose of me giving you the spiritual advantage so that God will then have, you will then have every opportunity to live the life of the work ordained for you to live. So I come to give you the spiritual. And so my goal is to empower you to take control back of your life story, okay? To put the pen back in your hand, to be the co-writer, the co-author in your life book of what God is going to say about you when you stand before the judgment seat of Christ. And I leave you with just these three words. This is my mantra, this is what my kids hear me say all the time. Just don't die. Just don't die. If you don't die, you will outlive the shame and the pain that you feel right now. Yes. Just don't die. All right.
Thank you. Isn't that powerful? And then this is night one. And this is 30 minutes of her reigned in.
Oh God, I don't know. Did I go over? I'm trying to
You're fine.
Okay.
You're fine. And it all works out. It's fine. I'm so blessed. And so if you remember, I told you I met her 2015. After all of that happened, and God knew what I was going to walk through, what I had been walking through, and what I was about to walk through, and carried me through this giant. That's how good our God is. I had no idea, and I learned bits of her story throughout time, and I'll go back and start beginning in a minute, but I had heard bits and pieces. I didn't know that I was going to have the same path. I didn't know I was on the same path, but daggone it, I was. Clearly. And she saw things I didn't see, couldn't see. And she was fully equipped to walk me through my darkest before I knew how dark it was ever going to be. And I say that not just for my story, but it's for all of us. God is that faithful that the resources that are already around you are all you need to carry you through what it is you're dealing with right now. The fact that you're here is never an accident. This woman amazes me. This is Deborah. Deborah amazes me because she moves with just such force and strength. And so I'm a thinker and a planner and a cautious calculator. And she moves on a dime. And it blows me away every time. Wow. I told her like right before I came down, hey, by the way, it's open. Like I moved some stuff around, I'm on my way. I was up there, they were in the room, and I was like, ah! Literally screaming. Just so blessed. I'm so blessed by your presence. Thank you for coming. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you. So let's start from the beginning, huh? So for someone watching, who might not know who I am or what this is about, my name is Alice Cohen. I go by the Remap Coach. This is back here because we're at a special time in God's calendar called the Feast of Tabernacles. Or you might hear the word Sukkot. Sukkot just means tent or booth. There's our booth. And literally the biblical instruction is dwell in booths. And I'll tell you more about the details of it, but it's like, take these leaves and this fruit and party for a week in a booth. Like that's the instruction. Tell my people to keep that as a statute throughout their generation. Okay, so we got some foliage back here. So in case anybody's like, what this is the funny thing, when you wrap a tent inside. More tomorrow. But okay, so I grew up in a Christian home. I had two parents that loved God, they loved each other, they were married for a lifetime. My mom passed away when I was 21. That's why I got another. God gave me not just double, I got like 3. That's talk about those questions. God bless me with spiritual mothers. So in variety. Just so awesome. I got a white one. I got a black one. I got a Hispanic one. Oh, I didn't even like that. God is good to me, y'all. So she passed when I was 21, but I also was my brother. When I was 8 years old, I'm the only natural child of my parents. And so when I was 8 years old, they brought in the first two foster kids. And so eventually we had up to 8 kids in the house at once, a lot. My mom just cared. She cared about children. She had her own story. I'm not going to tell her story, but at least not now. But she cares for children, and so she asked for the kids no one else wanted, and that's exactly what they brought her. So the runaways, the thieves, the molesters, those are the kind of kids we had in the house. And so I was molested from age 8 to 16 by one particular person, and there were other instances. I actually wrote about them, so I don't have time to go into all of that. But when that's happening when you're young, it radically affects how you see yourself. How you see yourself is forming when that's in those years. How I see myself, how I related to God, who God was for me, and how I related to men or boys at the time. And my mom was terminally ill with cancer, and some other things. She had many illnesses. So they gave her like 6 months to a year to live. Way back when I was like 6 years old, she didn't pass off. Which number one is a testimony of God. And I have that story also written somewhere. If you want it, I can share. She actually penned her own story because we knew about 5 years before she passed. And she got to do her bucket list. She got to write her letters to her family members. Back then we had cassette tapes, and she would, speak, and we would record for her sisters and things. And she got to make a piece of everybody. She wanted a piece of it. She has a really powerful testimony. But needless to say, we had to care for her. She was in the hospital all the time. She was bedridden. And so my dad, I was a teenager, and I imagined one time, I said, my parents don't have time for me. My mom's too busy dying. My dad's too busy watching. That's what and it wasn't untrue, not anybody's fault. It's just what was going on. And so we had all these foster kids, and they're all special needs, okay? Special needs. And there was just a lot of noise. And so I just felt really invisible. And I was a really compliant kid. If I was the kid that wasn't causing trouble, you don't get the attention. The kid wilding out gets the attention. True. Makes perfect sense. So something that formed in me really young was that I was invisible, and my only value came from what I did for someone. Because I'm an overachiever, so that got attention, right? So okay, so I must be valuable because I can do this or that. And so fast forward when I met the man that I married. By the way, it had been, people who are abused sexually, they either wow out, like they go have sex a lot, they're very promiscuous, or they click, Medea, click, I close down, right? I was that. I was closed. Now you couldn't tell. I'm sociable. I know my way around the room. My parents knew I had a speaking gift and would give me opportunities to use it. Like all the other kids in the church had little Easter speeches that they would read off the paper, and they'd say, Happy Easter Day. And everybody's like, yay. I had to write my own speech and memorize it, and my mom would coach me on it. Because she knew from this moment. She knew. I didn't know. I was like, come on, Mom. They all got these little itty speeches. But no, you stand over here, and this time I want you to. I'm sure. I hope she gets to see a moment like this. I hope she gets to see. I didn't plan on talking so much about my mom, but I definitely felt like there was no value for me aside from what I could do for someone. And when I did, but I knew that was a problem. And a core value of mine is growth. Same here. Core value of mine is personal growth. And I will do just about anything to make sure I grow past that thing. And you ain't gonna keep me, right? So I was in my early 20s. I had graduated from college. My mom passed away before I graduated from college. And so I went back to live with my dad, and I was helping him in the business. And I was like, God, I don't want men and relationships to be a stumbling block for me for him. You know, I don't want it to, I don't know what to do, but I don't want this to be my block. And so I started praying because I wanted to date. I wasn't trying to get married. I just wanted to not be afraid of boring. I just wanted to be okay, like those other folks say. They act like they're okay. I want to be okay. So that was my prayer. It wasn't but a week. Homeboy started knocking on my inbox. And all right, so he lived around the corner and we met on my street. Y'all remember my street. So there were red flags everywhere. You know, he wasn't, I wasn't fooled and I wasn't blind. What I was like, well, I even told him, like, we're not going to get married, I mean, because he came in real fast. And I've learned later that's a narcissist trait, but I didn't know any of that then. I just knew second date, he's like, you're a Proverbs 31 woman. You're going to be my wife. Dude, back up with that. I'm just being comfortable with the boy. Like, that's all I'm trying to get done here. And I told him at one point, if you don't stop pressing me, we can't hang out anymore. Like, okay, I'll stop, and stop. 2 years later, almost 3 years later, we were married. And so I knew that there was drama. Yeah, I knew he had mental illness. I knew he couldn't keep a job. What I didn't know, well, I thought, number one, that mental illness could overcome with prayer. God was going to heal him. The other issue was I kept asking God what to do, and he kept saying yes. What you mean? Hold on, what do you mean? Well, and I in the book, I literally take you through journal entries. I spent an entire year back and forth with God. I see this problem, I see that problem. I said, I don't understand. And God would be like, you let me take people in and out of your life. Because we had broke up like 3 times. So I was like, no. I said, no. And God kept saying yes. So my yes at the altar was trusting God. And I believe that, number one, God would be with us no matter what happened. Number two, we would be able to outlast any trouble. That was my plan. I knew there was trouble. I was just going to outlast. And I was built for trouble. My first book is called Goodbye or Go Through. It talks about the gift of go through. God told me I had the gift of go through. And so, matter of fact, that book was written out of our first separation. We separated a year and a half or 2 years and a half into marriage over adultery. He was a serial adulterer. It was 15 days after the wedding when I found the first indiscretion. Most of this was emotional adultery. So he's in the inbox or texting on the phone, at least to my knowledge. I found out some stuff later on. I just had no idea what was going on. So to my knowledge, it was emotional adultery. And so we separated a year and a half when my baby was born. It was a year and a half, but not that far apart. When I had my 9-month-old baby, my first one was 9 months old. I was laid off from my job, and I was the only breastfeeder. I was 6 months pregnant with my baby. And so, like, out of that, I believe God told me to leave. Back. I told before now, I used to tell that story like we reconciled. Yeah. I understood it like that, but that's not really what happened. What happened was I left, I went back. That's what happened. So that first book was written out of that and go through, and I had in that time and in that trial, I couldn't find support for me to stay and fight, and that's what my position was. If anyone got a whiff of what I was dealing with, and I didn't know words like abuse, I wouldn't say them because I didn't understand my life to be abuse. I would say little things like he texted this girl that he loves her, or he doesn't keep a job and I don't buy him what he wants, I'll ask another woman for money. Or he's really controlling over this thing over here, or just little This is what I'm dealing with right now. This is what I'm dealing with right now. And they be like, girl, leave, right? Church groups, everybody I went, I was like, well, I can't seem to find support for staying and fighting. And something would rise up in me when I was hearing it. I'm like, no, this is and so I started, I was coaching on like, purpose, and their, marketplace industry. Yes, I was doing that. And Success Academy was the last thing I did before I went to the rebound coach. And I was called the rebound coach before I was rebounding. But I tell you, how crazy this is. How crazy this is. Yeah, I had no idea why. Bounce back from what? Yeah, right. So I knew that I wanted to create a space, and that's something God gave me. I call myself a marketplace apostle because I start stuff all the time, and people are like, "Oh, I never heard of that." Yeah, I know. It's something we're doing over here. And so I was like, well, I'm going to create a space for godly women who are dealing with crazy relationships who want the relationship. That's where I was. I'm going to equip people. And so we did that for years. And I say Barbara was with me year one in 2015, my very first bridal retreat. You were with you. I met you that year, but you came the following. And so I did that for 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. Then. And then, so we'd be in this thing called coping crisis cycle. So we do okay. And this is when I met you and some of the language you were using, I'm very accustomed to, because you say things like, well, he's not mad today. Well, we didn't blow up an hour ago. That was an hour ago. Because I would count victories like that. And if you're counting victories like that, you're in the wrong game. But I didn't know. I was like, well, we're doing okay today. We're doing okay this afternoon. We had gotten to this point where every single night I'd come home from work. He was laying around all day because he didn't work. And we would argue so much to the point where he couldn't do any kind of confrontation, no matter how I tried to make it nice. And sometimes I wasn't so nice. A lot wasn't so nice. But no matter what, he couldn't take it. So eventually he'd leave the house, cry myself to sleep, wake up in the morning, do the whole thing again. I was suicidal. I didn't feel like there was any hope. I was very committed to the marriage, and I believe that was the way to honor God. And that was the only way to honor God. If you divorce, it's sin, God doesn't like it. You can't remarry, you're stuck. Like, the only way to do this right was to stay, pray, and God was going to do it. But in those years where God wasn't doing it, I didn't feel like there was any other way to get out of the pain aside from suicide. And so I didn't attempt in those years, but I attempted when I was a kid. So I even listening to your story today, I heard pieces I didn't hear before, and I heard similarities I didn't know we had. And so he'd have these mental illness breaks every couple of years. And schizophrenia was his diagnosis. And typically that doesn't like explode every couple of years. It explodes all the time, right? So I thought, well, they can't be right, because we only have these episodes every couple of years, or after some sort of event, something happened, and then I'm gonna pay for that. And so we were coping until there was a blow up, and we cope, and there'd be a blow up. And as the years went on, the blow ups were worse, and longer, and more, and the ramp up took longer. It wasn't just a snap. It was, man, what was a couple of days of decline is now a couple of weeks of decline. And so I was less equipped to handle it. And I'm like really super quick. And I call band-aiding or something, or trying to find a way, we'll make a way, we'll put this here, we'll do that. I had become very good at that But that was failing. And so towards the end of 2019, I went to an event, Orlando. You know what I'm talking about. It's a Dynasty. I went to Dynasty, and before I left, I was getting these. I knew there was another woman. I knew she was different. I wasn't sure how, but this was different, and it was encroaching. Most of the women they're over there. Sometimes I get a call or an email, hey, screenshot. I would get some of that, but this one was not. She was coming. And so I was texting him from Orlando, from Disney Springs. I served at this. I was in Disney Springs, and I said, "Do you love her?" And he's like, "Yes, I love everybody. He hates people." I knew that was a lie. That dude hates people. And I said, "Are you breaking our covenant with her?" He says, "No." Okay, but he wasn't trying to like. Okay, so I got back from that. Things continue to evolve, and he had to go to mental hospital because he called the police and told them I was dead. It wasn't the first time he'd done that, and they couldn't take him based on the criteria involuntarily. So I said, "Well, ask." And they asked him if he went. I thought I was going to get a couple days reprieve. It was a couple hours, and I can't go into all of these details, but come to find out, he got back. He was there a week. I went to the courthouse. I had to go to the courthouse and document what was going on to get an ex parte order. That's when the judge says you will go and get treatment, even if the other criteria isn't met. So I was able to do that, and the loss of 3 days was gone. When he got out, I had to tell you this part. So I was on the phone. This woman is banging on my door. It was the Monday after the Christmas break. So Christmas break is like 2 weeks or something. So the Monday after work, kids go back to school. So he was out. I was working from home. My kids were home with me. Bang, 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 bang. On my door, on my window. In the book, I used a different name. Almost came out. In the book, I used the name. I don't remember. It'll come.
Make up one for now.
Anyway, is so-and-so here? So-and-so here, I'm gonna bust this door down. I'm gonna break your window. My kids are like, what? Go in the room. I had no idea what was going on. I look out the peephole and I see a particular kind of clothing that Hebrew Israelites wear. I don't know if anyone's familiar. You're not. Are you familiar with Israelites? Long story, but they're a black militant cult. if you can imagine Black Panthers plus Nation of Islam with some Hebrew sprinkles. That's what you got. That's what you got. So he was heavily involved with that religion. And so I saw the particular kind of clothes that they wear, and I thought that was at the door. It wasn't. But I go for the door. I said, "I'm calling the police." Call the police again. Trespassed her. She's fighting with the police. How do you know it's not in there? I call my father-in-law. Help. So he comes. I had nothing for him to do, but his presence was, major. And the phone rings. It's my former husband saying they're releasing me. Come get me. And I was like, "You're a but I didn't go get him. My father-in-law did. He came back, talked to the girl for my children for a second, and I'm looking at him. His mind is gone. He done spent a week in the place. He done took the meds. Like, I don't have anything else I can do. I've done everything I know how to do. In other breakdowns, you go to the hospital, he comes back a zombie, we nurse him back, and he's back to this function, his level. But that's not what was going on this time. This was different. And so I got my girls out because now I need to do a training order against this chick that banged my door down. We get to court. I don't know her name fully. I don't know, and he's still clearly involved with her. So it wouldn't work. And the adulterer found out that wasn't the adulterer. But I didn't know her real name either. Anyway, that wasn't gonna work. So I got back to we were going out. Me and my kids going out. Got back to the house. The next day, the chick that was banging on my door was calling me up. By the way, I got some death threats text from her a weekend prior. So that same number is ringing me again. And I'm not answering that, and she's blowing my phone up. And so I pick up the phone, and I said, you don't stop calling me, I'm calling the police. She says, please don't hang up. Please don't hang up. I called to apologize. Go ahead. and she says, I was deceived. I need you to know that they are trying to come down. They're trying to come down and take. I bought him a plane ticket to go up there. They've gotten their plan together. They're gonna come down to you, and I just need you to know. What? I was at work. When that call happened, sitting at my desk, trying to be a good citizen. When that call happened, please don't hang up. I had stepped outside the office. What? And she filled in all this gap of how they had been playing. And there was already 2 foiled plans. She banged my door down because adulterers had a plane ticket to come down. They were going to come down, kill me, take my kids, get married. That was their plan. That plan foiled because he went to mental hospital. So then they sent battering ram to go see what the deal is.
Because they didn't know he was in the hospital.
Right. And she had called the police and told them to do a wellness check on her husband, who she hasn't seen for a week. Right. So the police knock on my door and say, is so-and-so here? His wife is looking for him. Oh, what? Fast forward through all that, I had to come to a decision. I mean, the DCF was in my house, like it was a lot swirling. And, it threatened everything about who I was, threatened, basic humanity as a child of God, who I was as a mom, who I was as a wife, who I was as a coach, this marriage coach, who had spent all this years and all this time building a platform around an ideal that was crumbling at my feet. And you have a decision to make. I'm either gonna let this tell me who I am, or I can choose life. So the name of my book ended up being I Choose Life. Rewrite your love story, like you're talking about. And rewrite your love story and change your legacy. When I talk about legacy, it is, we were always, I was always intentional about legacy. Even in my prior season, we were covenant warriors. Covenant warriors. It was about changing the trajectory, especially in Black community, right? And I didn't want to be a part of the statistic. I wanted to change the statistic. But what I've learned was the statistic or the merit is not as important as the person. And so when she says, I've been married to my second husband for 16 years, clap is not, 16 years is an accomplishment, but the quality of the 16 years is what we should be focusing on. And that's scary territory because, the church folks are like, staying is the only way. That's what I believed it. Lots of people believe it. And what I've learned is I've come in these circles of survivors, and so many godly women are married to quote unquote godly men. And I mean clergy and youth pastors and music ministers and Bible study group leaders and men's ministers. I'm not kidding you. And these are the people that are abusing their wives, and are serial adulterers, and they're financially abusing their wives, they're spiritually abusing their wives. And these broken-hearted women are not sure that God wants them saved.
Mhm.
I was that woman. I see those women, and I will forever stand for them. I will forever stand for them. Because the whole message is the opposite. It's you stay as long as you stay, you should just stay.
Mm.
Or they say things like, you hear people say, well, if you're abused, leave. Well, number one, I didn't know I would watch stories from people who are in domestic violence situations. That's so bad for the women. Oh, my heart just hurts for them. I go home and there are holes in my door. The door. The door frame, one of the door frames was broken because I locked the door and he broke it to get to me. He would, hold me down so I couldn't move, or one time in a big fight, he took my purse and keys so I couldn't move to that house. That is a narcissistic abuse pattern. I had no idea. My man was just moving. And I was anointed for him. The story to tell ourselves. And to be honest, there was a grace. Because I could have been dead a long time ago.
Yes, right.
He had wanted me dead for years. I found Manifesto in 2016. We was talking about me dying. But he believed that God was going to do it. And I didn't hear that very often. I heard it after like huge blow up, huge thing, and I'd hear something or post something, and the whole other conversation. But little things would pop up over the years, and they'd be few and far between. So I didn't. But when he met her, she's like, "Well, God's taking too long. God said you need to do this." And he was game. Outrageous.
Yeah.
Outrageous. But it's all intentional. And I feel God told me I was Joseph many years ago, similar in that way. Joseph went through a really awful time, and it was all completely good. He didn't make a mistake. He didn't do the wrong thing. That was the path God had for him. And I feel the same. So that we can be in moments like this. So I just wanted to share my story with you. It's almost time to go eat. Yes. This weekend is about that kind of transformation. So tomorrow, I'll be teaching more about the significance of this time and how we are to use it individually to transform, to be made new, and all the different ways we're going to do that. So be mindful, be thinking about how this connected for you, because I will be asking tomorrow. I'll ask you tonight, but as others tomorrow, how this connected with you, what you got out of it, learned, and we'll continue the process. Okay. We're in perfect time to go upstairs. We're in perfect time. I forgot the guy's name who we're supposed to go see. And Deborah is a superstar. So if she wants to, I pressed the button. Let me not press the button.